Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all kinds, including aliens and I guess lizard people, if you want to go the Alex Jones route.
Reptilians? You mean reptilians?
Reptilians, welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. I'm your special host, Alex Jones. Guys, we have an amazing show. I'm just going to turn it over to Shane and Paris and Scott.
It's pretty good, there, Scott.
That was really good.
It's been a while since I've
channeled your inner.
I was like, "Dang, bro, you got some skills."
That actually sparked back when we were on K Talk, going live, and I don't remember what happened, but I did it. I channeled it in the hallway, like right before a show, and Kristen, our producer, comes out like, "What was that? It sounded just like Alex Jones." And then it kind of became a thing for a while. And every time she was at the studio, she's like, "You need to do that thing again with Alex Jones' voice." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I guess so." But
brave man, you're a brave man.
Should I do our sponsors as via Alex Jones?
Might as well. Might as well.
Or whatever.
Oh man, now there's pressure.
Yeah.
Makes it much harder. So no pressure.
If you think you can survive the apocalypse without having proper medications, I mean antibiotics, you are crazy and you must be a reptilian. You need to go to jasemedical.com. That's at the JASE medical. If you don't know the word, look it up. .com. This is Alex Jones saying this is the best product you can get. Why? Because it comes with the Jase case. All the critical antibiotics you need, none of the reptilians. JaseMedical.com. Use Prepper Talk to get a $10 off. Oh my gosh, I can't do this, guys. This is insane. And we're also brought to you this week by the Ready Summit, which is actually launching next week. If you're not over there, you need to get there. You can use our promo code Prepper Talk to save 10%. What I love about it, besides the fact that I created it, is the fact that it is all the skills training, the knowledge-based training that you've never gotten at all the prepper expos you've ever gone to. You might get some gun stuff. You might get a little bit of canning, but it doesn't go into the depth that this is going to go into over the next year. Get your membership, hang on tight, and learn everything you can, because they're going to have weekly lives with experts. They're going to have the launch event the 28th through 30th of July. It's fantastic. If you're listening to this later, I'm sorry, prices do go up on the 28th. So get in now while the prices are good. And
awesome,
with that, let's jump in.
Yeah, no, it's super cheap. I even told Scott, I was like, "Bro, are you sure you want to charge that little? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I would, okay." He's like, "We need to get people in and we need to get people excited about it. So please, guys, go over there, check readysummit.com and get your tickets, because I think right now it's a steal.
Low price. It is insanely low. It's not just get people and get them excited. It's I'm trying to do this as cheap as possible. I shouldn't say cheap. Cheap's a terrible word. I'm trying to do this as affordable as possible for anybody that wants to get better prepared, because the problem is you can go take some jackwagon's class that's like $3,000 and learn all the same stuff. And he's going to teach it to you over a period of a year. But it's going to be his perspective, not the experts.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might pay $65 for this class and $90 for another class, and that's great, but it's like, how long is it going to take you to get through all that and find the classes, first of all, to make sure they're good classes? These are speakers and presenters and educators that have been doing this 20 plus years. In a lot of cases, people that spoke at PrepperCon, taught at PrepperCon, people I go to as experts. So it's like, if you're going to go somewhere and try to find the best of the best, find who is doing podcasting, who is already teaching this, who's already training this, and find out who they go to.
Yeah,
and that's who I'm using. Like, that's who I'm going to for the trainings. And the people I go to, the people you guys go to, that's who we go to for the trainings, and that's who's going to be doing the trainings for us. And it's phenomenal. So I'm excited. We're going to have, oh my gosh, we're going to have some really amazing people. Sydney, who's Prepstetter on TikTok, she's going to be there teaching canning. I've got a guy that's going to come teach smoking food. And other methods, Indian Native American methods that he's used his whole life. He's been teaching that for years. He's going to come teach that probably in another month. And then we've got first aid plus first aid technologies from Shield Safety. And then we're going to have some more advanced first aid from AMP3 and Dr. David Pruitt, who is absolutely fantastic. He even teaches a suturing class. We're going to try to have him teach that in the next month or two on the platform. So he's an ER doc. I mean, he's former U.S. Navy, like one of the best
Wow.
I go to for training. And honestly, he's who we should have talking to us with first aid stuff today too. Probably should have called him in advance. But we've got the next best thing, which is Shane.
Wait a second. Hold on. What are you talking about?
Wait, I got my first aid merit badge, bro. Come on.
Dude, hey,
Hey, well, you're qualified. You're qualified.
triple that.
I'm an Eagle Scout. I got my first aid merit badge.
So for those of you on the video, you can see I'm holding up my Boy Scouts of America handbook. Now, this is the newer one for when I became a Scoutmaster, but it's got all the basics of first aid in here. And I love it because even if you're a dummy, you can learn it. It's got pretty pictures that are fuzzed out. Pretty pictures that can show you what to do. How to provide urgent treatments and care. Like, have a guide. Have something around with you with your first aid kit that can tell you what you need to do if you don't know what to do in those emergencies.
Well,
But
the thing
honestly, learn it now if you can.
Yeah, the thing about first aid is that it's a perishable skill. It really is. You know, it's like going out and practicing your archery or firearms or whatever. You need to brush up on a regular basis. I mean, well, I guess what Scott and Parrish are referring to is I trained as an EMT long time ago. A long time ago. It was one of the first courses I took when I went to college. And because it's what I wanted to do. You know, I didn't want to take these business classes. I wasn't interested. But so I did something. I started out with something I really wanted to do. And, you know, as an EMT, you have to continue to recertify. I haven't done that. But I have, for the most part, kept up with my skills, but not recertifying as that because I didn't want to work in that field. And as an EMT, you would think I'm not queasy of blood. I am, right? I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like, you know, going through the class and seeing all the pictures and all the kind of, you know, makes me, you know, weak to the stomach. Let me say that. But however, when in an emergency, and I learned this about myself, is that my brain, it pushes all that out and I'm able to focus on the situation and I'm fine. But if I'm sitting there, you know, learning or being taught, okay, yeah, that doesn't work very well for me. Being able to see those kinds of things that that you need to address when you have an emergency, right? So I guess as the most qualified here, you can go ahead and lean on me. And I guess what things I wanted to point out today is when it comes to kits, you know, preppers, we like kits, right? When it comes to first aid, man, it's all about kits, right? It's all about having the first aid kits, and they technically they are kits, right? You're not just, oh, I got a little bit over here, a little bit over there, which is in my home. That's a way, and I think probably a lot of people's home. That's the way they approach first aid, right? Is they've got their pantry, they've got maybe some stuff in the kitchen where you go for your first aid supplies. We have that. Obviously, we lean on that every day, but I also think it's important to have particular kits stashed in certain areas for particular needs. And I guess let me expound on what I have in the way of kits. In our master bedroom, I have a bag that's prepared with the essential items that I can grab and run to another bedroom, outside, wherever it may be, nearby, or throw it in my vehicle, whatever, for those really critical emergencies. So I don't have to go hunting through the cupboard. So where did I put this? Where did I put that? Where's the tourniquet? You know, I have that bag ready.
The tourniquet. You go straight to the tourniquet. Okay.
You know, it used to be where tourniquet was the last resort. It has flipped. And that's the types of things you learn in continuing education, as well as about CPR. It's changed dramatically as well. And so, yeah, and I don't know if we even have time to get into those types of details about first aid. I just want to kind of talk about kits in particular. So that is kind of, I have that go-to kit at home. It's a larger bag. I've got my stethoscope in there, and my mom used to call me, at least as my wife's grandma calls me, hey, can you come check my blood pressure? Okay, yes, I'll come by, and I grab that bag and walk out the door. It's kind of like a little doctor bag. It's kind of cool, right? Kind of makes you feel kind of nice. I got everything in there I need.
You got a stethoscope?
Yeah, sphygmomanometer and pressure BP cuff.
Wait, say that again.
If I'm saying it right, sphygmomanometer. That's your stethoscope. But anyway, that was a lot of fun to learn how to actually take blood pressure reading with a cuff and with the stethoscope, and then of course I'm just yammering here, guys. You'll feel free to jump in.
When you said, I was just going to say, if we're going to talk about kits first, that's great. I think what when you say this, the standard stuff in the kit, what does that mean? What give me an example of maybe 5 or 10 standard things you should have in a kit.
Well, here's what I base this particular kit on is kind of like a vehicle kit. Scott, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If you pull up on an emergency, I could grab this kit. It would be perfectly appropriate for that type of an emergency, for a trauma kit. So if in a trauma, you need to first, it's the ABCs that are most important, right? Airway, breathing, and circulation. And so the kit is kind of centered around that, and has the large Band-Aids, like the trauma bandages, the Israeli bandages, the tourniquets, those types of things that are essential, gauze and so forth, that are essential to stop bleeding and handle an emergency, a critical emergency as best I can. Yep. Yeah, I don't really have Band-Aids in there. That's not that kind of kit, right?
It's not what it's for. It's
exactly.
So your car kit, your goat kit type stuff, it's not the same as your mommy boo-boo kit, right? Mm-hmm. Band-Aids are for the mommy boo-boo kit. And I call it the mommy boo-boo kit because my kids are like, Mommy, I have an owie. I need a Band-Aid.
I don't see it. What's wrong? Where's it?
Yeah.
It hurts right here.
1,000 Band-Aid on it a year just on the mommy boo-boos that aren't real. This is I rolled upon an accident, and I'll give you an example of it. When we were on the air at K-Talk, my wife and I went on a little weekend trip to Logan, and on the trip, it's raining, and we see this guy just fly past us in a massive storm, like flip up onto the railing, the guardrail, slide down the guardrail on his little fancy car, flip off the guardrail, and slide into a ditch, bounce around in and out of the ditch, and end up kind of sideways, but upright. And we're the first ones on the scene. So while I'm grabbing my trauma kit out of the back of the car, my wife's calling 911. And she's letting him know there's a guy that's been speeding. Here's everything that's going on. I get to him. He's in massive shock. Nothing else. Like I'm checking everything else. He's breathing fine. Circulation's fine. His heart rate's way up. And I'm like, okay, there's really nothing I need to do except for keep him calm, help calm him down. And so we just wrapped him in the tinfoil blanket because that just is a psychological thing. He's like, oh, this will help. The reality of whether those do anything or not, it reflects a little tiny bit of heat, but it doesn't do much. It's really more a mental game for people. Got him some water, started really talking to him, asking him a lot of questions, making sure he understood what day it was, what's going on. Didn't ask him anything about the accident. Just, I figured, hey, when the police get here, they can ask all those questions. Don't want to confuse the kid's story. But just kept talking to him.
So when you rolled up on him, did you obviously with the adrenaline running through his body, he may or may not have even felt if something broke or not, or is in pain, or what do you do to assess that? Like, give us an example of something that might happen to.
One thing I would say is, that's part of being trained as an EMT. One of the first things you're taught is a head to toe assessment. Okay. And that's kind of what this vehicle kit, this at-home trauma kit is oriented around. Like, you first check for bleeding, right? For any massive bleeding. And so this kit is, okay, if someone fell out of a tree in my house, I can grab this and go splint an arm, right? Or take care of a concussion, and the best you can take care of a concussion, right? So sorry to interrupt there, Scott.
No, you're good question. So he wanted to try to get up and get out of the car right away. And I told him, stop, stop, don't move. We need to check you out before you take another step. And he just had his foot out of the car. And I'm like, you're not going anywhere. We need to make sure you're okay. I'm like, does anything hurt? He's like, no. I'm like, he was breathing. So I didn't have to worry anymore about airways. Everything, he was breathing just fine. So then I'm like, just stay here, hold still. Checked his pulse on his arm. It was fine. It was really high, but it was fine. Checked his other arm. I wanted to see if there's anything bleeding, anything broken. Looked at his legs, checked his thighs, checked his chest. There was no blood anywhere. Nothing I had to worry about. He wasn't saying "ow" when I checked his chest or anything. And I'm not going to do like a thorough exam because I don't know everything I need to do.
Sure.
All I need to do is make sure he's breathing and he's aware.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's bleeding, I need to stop the bleeding and put pressure on it and keep him there. Immobilize him, because when you're flipped and rolled and stuff like that, you're going to have whiplash. So I didn't want him to move because he's not going to know how bad it is until tonight. The next morning.
His neck might be.
Yeah,
and
you wait for the professionals to get there, the EMTs, the paramedics, to then immobilize and transport if they need to.
Yeah,
that's their job. That's like you're saying, Shane, you know what you're doing? No, I don't really know what I'm doing. When it comes to someone who does this every day, who's a professional EMT or paramedic, who really knows what to look for. And so it's always best to then just rely on the professional. Like you say, Scott,
yes.
Take care of them best you can in the car. Don't move, sit here, unless the car's going to catch on fire or something, right? Or if they're in danger of some sort, stay there.
Not in immediate danger. Like,
exactly.
We had a big vehicle, I had my big truck. And so that was there. I had my lights on. Signals were going off, the emergency lights were going. We were about 80 feet back from him. E-brakes on, wife's in the car, foot on the brake, so we're good. Plus there's really nobody else coming. When someone did finally come by, they're like, whoa, what just happened? But that's because at that point the police had been there and the EMTs were there, and so we were about to leave. There was really not a lot of people on the road, so this kid was pretty lucky we were there right then to be able to call, because he couldn't find his phone, and all he was worried about is his dad's going to kill him because it's his dad's car and he's not supposed to be driving it.
Oh, dang.
Right. So
a couple of things I would say is that when you're in a situation like that, you had a single car, but if it was a multiple car situation where somebody comes, there's some critical information that EMTs, that a 911 will want to know. For example, if there's 4 or 5 cars, make sure you note that. I mean, when you walk up into an emergency, one of the things we see on TV all the time is somebody call 911. Well, if somebody's calling 911, then nobody's going to call 911 because somebody else is always going to be calling. The recommendation is to point to somebody and say, you call 911. And this is what you tell them. We're going to need 4 ambulances because 4 cars got hit and there's 6, or maybe there's 6 people because only 1 ambulance can carry 1 person. So you kind of got to do a little of an assessment at, call 911 immediately, and then maybe get a number to call back and say, hey, look, after I've assessed the situation, what I'll tell you what to do. But mostly you're right. Just leave it to the professionals. Just make sure that you do the ABC and then walk away, and not walk away, but just be there till they get there. And
stay there till you can be released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I can tell people. Even if you don't feel like you're helpful, if there's nobody else there, you stay there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You stay there so you can at least tell the professionals what you've seen, what you've witnessed. But this is why I tell everybody, get basic first aid training. Get CPR training. You don't even CPR. You don't even have to breathe anymore. And for civilians, they tell you not to.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just compressions.
Unless it's a critical situation, you have to. But don't. Compressions are the more valuable thing in the situation. And really, it's pick a song and keep the beat. And you just keep pumping.
Staying alive.
Right? Staying alive.
There's this. It's
Baby Shark is supposedly a really good one now. I'm like,
I know Baby Shark.
I saw your TikTok on that, Scott. That was so funny, dude. That was so funny. Another thing I was going to. It's not just knowing CPR though. It's knowing when someone's in shock. There's things that you can do to help calm them down and bring them to a place where they can be normal. When I was a kid, I was going, we were rock climbing in a place called Joshua Tree, which is Southern California. And it's just desert and just rocks. And it's really famous for rock climbing. In fact, a lot of if anybody's listening, there's a rock climber, you'll have heard of it. But we were up in this place and we were climbing a mountain, and my friend went down a chute. He went down and he broke his leg, twisted it, broke it. And he was down in there. And we were up halfway up this mountain, and there was we could yell as loud as we wanted and nobody was there. But I sent my friend back. I said, you got to go back and you got to find somebody to call, to get a phone, to drive a car, whatever. And I stayed there and I talked him through it. I kept him breathing. I couldn't get down to him. He was literally in a crevice and his foot was jacked and broken and twisted the wrong way. It was just really ugly and gross. I don't want to get into too many details, but I kept him going. I kept him talking to me. I kept him thinking. I tried to get him some clothing so he could stay warm as the things come. And thankfully, it was interesting because out that weekend there was the I think it was the search and rescue for the SEAL team was out that weekend, and then there was a guy. There was the guy next to us at the campsite was. He was a search and rescue / climbing guide for like a lot of big mountains. And he was just there with his daughter and kid, practicing and having fun. And so we had we were fortunate to have some really, high level skilled people that close. Ended up having to bring a helicopter in to get him out. And, his mom didn't like me very much after that because it was my idea to go on the camping trip and climb the mountain. But anyways, the point is that when people are stuck, there's things you can't do physically maybe, but you can mentally keep them alive, keep them alert, keep them awake, keep talking to them, keep them thinking about other things, keep their mind going so that they're not going into shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those scenarios are really good to go through and see.
Yeah. So there's that kit, which honestly I think is the most important kit you can have. For the vehicle, I have a smaller version of it, right? It's got the trauma things in there, the gauze, the trauma bandages, the tourniquet and such. And that's also part of my range bag kit as well, right? So when it comes to kits, I've got more first aid kits than you can shake a stick at, right? It's scattered everywhere, and it's not a first aid kit for me is not something that necessarily moves from bag to bag to bag. Each bag already has one prepared, appropriate for the activity, right? I take different kits fishing, right? I take different kits hiking. I take different kits in our RV, to the range. On my motorcycle, I've got a kit just for my motorcycle. So I've gone through and in most cases built my own kit of things specific I think I'll need, that are important for the activity. So that's something I highly recommend is don't necessarily just go buy a pre-made kit. Start from scratch, figure out what you need. And then once you learn those types of things, then you can maybe jump online and look at different kits. And there are some really nice kits out there, but they're very expensive, right? They're crazy expensive in some cases. In a lot of cases,
extremely expensive.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, you're buying a bag that's made custom for that, which can be important at times.
And honestly, ditch the bag if you can, right? Most of the time, the bag's not the benefit. It's the stuff in the kit that's the benefit, right?
Yeah.
There are some bags that I'm like, man, that makes total sense. Any of the rollout bags are phenomenal for like when you're for vehicle trauma kits, like stuff like that. Like a rollout bag's fantastic because everything rolls out and you can see it all. Oh yeah, I need this. My grandpa had one of the best first aid kits that he took everywhere he went. It was a fishing tackle box.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so cool. And then I kind of got into the tactical phase for a little while. I'm like, that's so lame. Like, get a tactical bag. And then I did that, and I'm all, this is so hard to get anything in and out of. Like, and so I'm like, I've simplified everything. I'm like, if I can't get it in and out fast, if I can't use what I need when I need it, I can't spot it, it's the wrong kind of kit. Or if I can't just dump the whole thing and grab what I need. So there's Survival Medical was around for a while that I liked because you could just dump it out, grab what you need and go. Right. But if you're trying to fumble through it, you're never going to find anything. So that's a negative on it.
Also, obviously a bag can take up a lot of space, right? If you're trying to put a first aid kit in a backpack that you got a fancy bag, it's just going to take up weight and space. So like, that's where I create my own, put it in a Ziploc bag or double bag, freezer quality, nice thick Ziploc bags make for a great first aid kit that you want to be compact and specific.
Those freezer bags or the Ziplocs are one of the best ones I use as well. Like, because you can see what's in there. And I even have some of mine compartmentalized into 2 or 3 bags.
Well,
there's that part. You
mentioned survival.
This is what I need.
Yeah. You mentioned Survival Medical. They came in Mylar bags, Ziploc Mylar bags, which, if you can get those, that's a really durable way to go too.
Yeah.
You get some of the smaller Mylar bags and create your own.
Yeah, that's good. Let's run a couple scenarios. Like one of them I think about is, CPRs if someone's choking. My son and I were working out in the yard and we were in Central California in a place called Fresno. And it gets to be 115 in the summertime there. And when you're out working in the yard, one of the big things that happened to my son, he got heat stroke. So you can die from heat stroke, and that's a serious issue. So what do you do when it comes to the heat stroke? Well, we immediately recognized the situation. He was turning pale, and we brought him in the house, cooled him off, got him some water, just got just cooled him off as water, wet washcloths, just a bunch of stuff like that. So in your area in Fresno, we didn't have to worry about hypothermia. I had to worry about heat stroke. Now I live in Utah. Now I'm going to
worry about both.
Yeah, now I have to worry about both. So it's critical to learn the skills necessary. So you guys talk about hypothermia. Somebody's in a situation where they're in hypothermia. What do we do? How do we jump to this solution on that?
Well, you made a great point there, Paris, is that you have to be able to first recognize, whether it's heat stroke or hypothermia or whatever. It's sometimes, if you're not observing, you're not taking the time to watch out for others, you might observe it too late, right? Mm-hmm. And with hypothermia, it's your core body temperatures is decreasing, it's getting lower, and usually that's for specific reasons. It can happen in 50, 60 degrees if you're wet. It can happen pretty quickly where your core body temperature drops. And some of the signs of that are obviously stumbling, unclear thinking. Essentially Joe Biden. Just look at him, and that's going to be hypothermia right there.
Hypothermic all the time.
He's always.
You don't have first aid to fix him.
The primary things to look for: are they cold and are they feeling cold and numb? Are they tired? Are they unable to think straight or communicate? Are they shivering uncontrollably? Mm-hmm. Are they making poor decisions? I know this sounds like Joe Biden. Are they becoming irritable? Are they stumbling, and are they falling? Are they losing consciousness? Like those are like Shane almost nailed it in reverse order perfectly. But then you've got to grab them. You got to hold on to them. You got to take them. And if you can get them, if they're in wet clothes, you got to get them out of the wet clothes, right? What's always best to do. And this is, I can't remember the show, but we used to watch this in 6th grade. It was like a required show you had to watch. It was like this whale exploration show. And they actually had in there hypothermia. This kid fell in the water, and they pulled him out, and he was hypothermic, and they stripped him down to his underwear, put him in a sleeping bag, and they're like, it's not warm enough. He needs additional heat. And so another person from the crew got in with him, and I'm like, I would never do that. And then I'm like, get into scouts. I'm like, I would absolutely have to do that. I'm like, okay, good to know. But you've got to start bringing that core temperature back up, and you can't do it too rapidly, because then you're going to have other problems created. But you've got to start bringing that core temperature back up and maintain and stabilize it. And that's why that skin to skin warmth, there's a lot of transfer of that heat mass. And then you wrap them both up, that's going to be your best shot. Yeah.
And if you have some of those chemical heat packs as well, you have to have some other source of heat, because they're not obviously generating their own heat. So that's a very important emergency in the wintertime, especially if you're an outdoorsman. But if you're prepared, and which is what we preach around here, right? If you're prepared, you can really avoid. For me, that's an easy one to avoid, unless there's some freak accident or something like that. But
don't walk across the ice, first of all.
There you go. Say, oh, look, that's walking on the thin ice.
Don't dangle off the side of a ship when you're searching for whales.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Just be cautious. Like make smarter choices. Mm-hmm. One of the first things the first aid section of the Boy Scout handbook talks about is, before you jump into action, look. And they're telling you to look for issues that could cause safety concerns for the person being rescued and those who are going to rescue them. Because
exactly,
one of the conditions could be a snake bite.
Mm-hmm.
We have rattlesnakes up here. Mm-hmm. And if someone gets bitten by a snake and you go to try to help them and you get bitten too, well, congratulations, you're an idiot. Like, that could have been avoided. You already saw them get bitten. Like, look at the situation. If in your case your friend fell down a crevice, you couldn't get down, you had to assess that and be like, can I get in there? No, I can't. Okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing, is we've got to look and see, what can we do? What is safe to do?
Because you don't need two victims.
Exactly. We don't need two or more victims just because one person's not being smart about saving the other.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that came up in my childhood is that we were playing as kids with these. I don't know if you remember they have them all. They're like the swords that you put in a sandwich, and you get the sword, and we were, it was a little,
Yeah.
I think it was a little longer sword because it was a
Yeah.
little bigger sandwich. Anyways, we were playing as kids, we were being idiots and doing sword fight. Before I know it, my brother has one of those sword things like through his forearm. And I'm like, Mom, what do we do?
Whoops.
And the first thing she says, don't remove it. Don't take it out. Leave it there and let's go to the ER. And I think that's a critical thing to remember as well, that if somebody gets stabbed with something, if possible, leave it there. Let's talk about why that's important. Why should we leave it there? What's
well, there are a few situations where you can remove it. If I can remember properly, in the cheek, you can remove something that penetrates the cheek. And then there's one other, and I can't remember what that one. I'm thinking it was in your hand, but I don't remember that for sure. But yeah, you're gonna the punctured item is going to bleed, right? But it's going to bleed more if you remove it, and then you have to worry about controlling that bleeding, right? Are you prepared to control the bleeding that you create by removing something that's been impaled in the body? So in general, yeah, I mean, even if it's in the cheek and you got access to the ER or whatever, just leave it, and get to some help.
Get to the ER first. And the other thing is like you removing it could cause more damage to the organs around it, to the tendons, to the skin, to the muscle. It's like you could cause more problems than it's worth, because you also don't know if it's infected. And if you pull it out, it's going to be hard for them to find all the infection and clear it out and clean it out correctly when you get them to the hospital. And so that's one of the other reasons they say is like, don't pull it out, because you don't know what it is and what contaminants are on it. And you don't know what kind of damage you're going to create when you pull it out. And the other one is it could cause more bleeding. Well, it will cause more bleeding. Like right now, it's a cork plugging the hole. If you pull it out, that shit's going to sink.
Yeah, it's like having a screw or nail in your tire, right? You pull it out, it's going to leak. You leave it in there, it's going to leak slower.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. I think the biggest takeaway, though, is like we're talking about some of the basics. The biggest takeaway is people need to just actually take time and go get certified. Like the American Red Cross does CPR training for free. There's so many organizations that you can go get training for free. Shoot, pay $50, pay $100, pay $300. That's an investment. That's one of the knowledge points, critical skills that you need to know to help yourself and those you love.
Go take an EMT course at your local community college.
Yeah.
There you go.
Even do the CERT training. If you do the CERT training in your local city, they'll give you that first aid training.
Yeah.
And it's the fire department and the EMTs doing the training. So you're going to get it from the best people.
And they'll probably have a first responder course as well to take, which is more valuable than a basic first aid course. So highly recommend taking a course. Sure, there's a lot of great videos on YouTube. You never know who's the right expert to follow, right? That's the biggest question is everybody out there has their opinion.
Yep.
But if you find some good quality, I mean, there's some really great ones. The Patriot nurse, that's one who I follow, and she's fantastic. And she's a nurse, and she's qualified. She teaches courses, and she travels. I think she's actually coming to Salt Lake City sometime this year as well to teach courses. So, that might be kind of cool.
Also, check out redcross.org. They've got their first aid for severe trauma, their fast course. You can take that. And they've got that through so many different partners that teach that course. It's a 135-minute course. Like, totally worth it.
Very cool.
Get in there, guys. Go get trained. They even have an online-only version you can do. But there's so many things you can do skill-wise to get better prepared and to get better educated in first aid, that the problem is people just would rather spend time Netflixing and chill. And the problem's going to be when something happens, you don't know when it's going to be.
Well, I think the issue also is, one of the issues is, first aid is, it's not cool gear, right? Us preppers, we like gear. We like all the tools and stuff, right? You get a first aid kit. Most of the time it just sits there and you don't use it, right? And that's kind of a little depressing, right? You buy something and you don't use it. It just sits there just in case of emergency. So what I recommend is go down to your local dollar store. They usually have lots of good first aid stuff there for $1.50. Go load up there, spend $50 on some components and put yourself together a first aid kit. And that's doing it on the cheap. That's about as cheap as it's going to come right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I built this kit at the dollar store.
Yeah.
The box I had. I got it for free from an auction that we go to. But everything in here, I got at the dollar stores. It cost me $22 to build this whole thing. I've got
Sweet.
a CPR face shield. I've got the tinfoil blanket. I've got small suture staple kit. I've got all types of different medications. I've got a mask. I've got poncho. I've got sterilization wipes. I've got blood clot. I've got finger splint. This is fun. I even have a finger wrap and splint in case they rip off part of a finger or cut it open.
And you found that at the dollar store, huh?
I found that at the dollar store.
That's
I was
pretty
like,
awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Got one of these? I'm like, nice.
And if you were to find that kit at a retail store, it'd probably be $100 for a kit that size.
$22
to $100. Yeah.
Yeah, easily double the price that he paid.
Yeah.
What I need is more gauze, and I need I just lost what I needed. More gauze. Oh, and a tourniquet. And then I'll feel like this kit's ready.
Nice.
But the tourniquet's going to cost me another $18. Not a big deal. Like, I'm still under $50.
Mm-hmm.
And gauze, I can get more gauze for $5. They just didn't have any when I got there. It was actually, I went to 2 different stores because one of them was completely barren. That's the thing, is like, go get what you need now while you can. Always get it while you can, because when you may not have it.
Yeah. And if there's anything to double and triple up on is tourniquets. Buy a half dozen of them and stash them where, in each one of your kits, in a range bag, in your vehicle, in your backpack. Yep. And so you always have one. You don't have to focus on moving that around and then say, oh, if I forgot to move it to my pack when you really need it. So that's what I do, is have those really important things and have multiple of them, like Israeli bandages. I've got them stuck in every kit and every bag I have. So especially those things that are necessary for traumatic injuries like that, life-threatening injuries.
Absolutely. Awesome. So here's the final thought of the day, guys. When it comes to preparedness, when it comes to first aid, when it comes to everything, skip the trip. If you're going on vacation, if you're going to go do something expensive, skip it and put that money right now towards better preparedness, towards the skills and the gear that actually matter. Because that extra trip, especially if you're going to go into debt for that, that's just going to do a disservice to you and your whole life. Take that time right now, go learn a skill. Your kids will have a great experience going to the class as well with you. They're going to come out and they're like, man, I know how to fix this. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. They're going to brag to their friends. It's going to be phenomenal. And it's going to be something they're going to remember for so much of their life because they went with you and had a memorable experience. So take the whole family and go do this. Go get first aid training.
And provide a lot of confidence as well when you're out doing things. And especially as a parent and you're worried about, oh, don't do this. You're going to get hurt. Okay, if you get hurt, I know how to take care of you. It removes a lot of worry in my life.
And then they eventually know what that will actually happen. Oh, if I do this and I get hurt, it'll probably be this kind of fracture, and that kind of fracture takes this long to heal. They'll be a little wiser about doing stupid stuff.
Absolutely.
They can do dangerous things as long as they do it as safely as possible.
Mitigate the risks. Absolutely.
Mitigate the risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life is dangerous, my friends.
It is.
So,
no doubt.
That'll do it for this episode, guys. Remember to come back every Tuesdays and Thursdays. New episodes drop. We love that you guys are participating with us. Make sure you join us on our Facebook group. Find us at Prepper Talk Radio pretty much on all socials. And use the code Prepper Talk for discounts at thereadysummit.com. You can get 10% off right now on tickets. Also, $10 off at Jase Medical for your antibiotic kit. We think everybody should have at least 1 or 2 of those in their home. That way you can take care of the immediate needs as those needs come up. Stay safe, stay aware, and get prepared. Love you guys. Appreciate you for listening.
See you next time.
Thanks. Take care.